Hello students and parents, my name is Maureen Hosty. I'm with the Oregon State University Extension 4-H Youth Program, and I'm here today to give you a few tips on releasing your salmon into the wild. So today is a special day. Today is the day our salmon that we've been raising for the last several weeks are ready to be released into the wild. I'm here at Mountain Beach off of Northeast Marine Drive, and these are one of two spots that I'm recommending we release our fish for this project for a couple reasons. One of the things I like about Mountain Beach is that it's got a really nice beach here. The water is shallow, you can go out, you can actually watch the fish as they swim away, so it's very safe. And it's a big open area for kids. When you're done, you could do a little bit of running around. The other area will be Selwood Park, which I'll be showing you next. But first, let's talk about our salmon, what's going to be happening today. So the first thing is you'll be picking up some fish from your teachers, and there's a couple things you got to be thinking about. One is how are you going to transport the salmon from your teacher's house or school or wherever you pick them up to bring them out to the beach. Well, I've got a couple pointers for you. First off, it's best to get like a small cooler like this one I have to be able to transport your fish. And inside your cooler, I have packed a cold, wet towel to kind of keep the cup of fish that I have in my cooler here kind of from sloshing around. And then I also have a small ice pack, nothing big, just one small one, just to keep it cold. We don't want it to be freezing, so packing it with ice, but you do want it cold enough that the fish stay cold while you're transporting them. So next I have a cup that you'll be getting, and in my cup I have a top with my cup. It's just a little plastic cup, and I've got some holes on the top of it. Because the main thing we want to keep in mind, I'm going to let the plane go overhead. To keep in mind, if we want the water to stay cold, and we want the water to also have a little bit of oxygen. So just even sloshing around gets a little bit of oxygen going, but so you want the top to have some holes in it so they can still get the air. You don't want like a sealed top. So the other thing to be thinking about is when you pick up your fish, you want to go directly to the release site. So there's not a time where you're going to run some errands first and then go and release the fish. Because we want to get the fish into the water as soon as possible. So these little cups work great with a little top, or you could rig something else up. As you'll see, I have my fish here. I'm going to bring them up a little bit closer, if you can see that. Our fish in there. Now these fish are... Next, you'll want to work with your students or children that you're with to look at the habitat, the new habitat these fish are going to be at, and have them make an assessment. Will this be a good habitat for their fish? Because they've been learning through these last several weeks about salmon habitat, and they've learned some of the things that are important is the water cold? Is the water clean? Is there a place where the fish can get the small alvin to get shelter? And is there oxygen? So in this habitat, we're going to be doing a few little tests, and I'm going to help you go through some of what those tests are. Okay, the first thing we'll be looking at on this one is the temperature. So when we picked up the fish from the salmon from the Oregon Fish and Wildlife Department, they came from the Sandy River, where the water temperature was around 48, 49 degrees. We were keeping our fish tank at around 50 to 52. So let's see what the water temperature is here. As you will see, I've been keeping a thermometer here in the water, and we'll take a look at this. And it looks like the water temperature actually is pretty close. It's about 48 degrees. So it's very similar to where the tank they're coming from. The next thing we'll be testing is the pH. This will help test how clean the water is. So each day we were testing the water tank to making sure that the pH stayed around 7.0, which is the perfect pH for salmon. So now let's test the water here in the Columbia River. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my vial and I'm going to fill it up to right about that top white line. And I got just about right. And so now I'm going to put in some pH test solution. Hold this here. And I'm going to put in 3 drops. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I got my 3 drops. And then I'm going to just shake a few times very lightly. And you can see we got the test solution there. And now let's see what the pH is. If we hold it up against this card, you actually see the pH is pretty high. It's 7.6. So it's not the best pH for what we want for a fish. But it's not bad. Okay, so now we tested our pH and the temperature. So now it's time to release our fish. As I mentioned, you'll have a cup of fish like this. And the thing to keep in mind is when we're putting the fish into the river, so just like people, when there's a change of the type of water, for instance, in this we know the pH is much higher than it was from their tank. We also know that the water temperature is about 5 degrees colder, so we want them to get a little bit acclimated. So we're going to do this in slow, gradual ways for them to get used to the new water that they're going into. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the cup, and we're going to put the bottom of the cup just into the water, just so the fish gets used to the temperature around the cup. So I've let the cup sit there for a little bit so the water's coming around and trying to cool the water to kind of balance out the temperature. Next thing I want to do is just tip the cup slightly over and add a little bit of river water. Not a lot, but just a little bit, just so they kind of get used to it. And they'll react a little bit, but just let them get used to the new water that we got from the river, and just let it sit there, maybe 20 seconds or so. And when your 20 seconds is over, let's put a little bit more river water in. Okay, and we got some more. So it's just, they're slowly getting used to this new water. We've added it with the regular water that came from the tank. So we're kind of adjusting. If you can wait even a minute in between each time, that would even be better. And then after you've done that several times, then it's time to release them. So let's tip the cup slowly over, and we're going to just let them swim out on their own. If you watch them really close, you can kind of see. You don't have to dump it out, but you can just watch them slowly go out, and you can actually see them as they swim away. This is a good time to maybe make a wish for them, or some kind of poem maybe you want to read, or something like that. And as they swim off to their new home. Hi, so now I'm at Selwood Park here in southeast Portland. This is another good location for dropping off your fish and releasing them into the wild. We're here on the Willamette River, and you can see this is a great spot for a couple of reasons. It's a beautiful park, of course, and it's got a little bit of a beach here. It's a little bit smaller, it's significantly small, but it's nevertheless a beach that you can actually walk out, so when you release the fish, you can stand there and watch them swim away. So again, if this is a spot you choose to release your fish, again, it needs to be in the Columbia River, the Willamette River, and the Sandy River. But no small streams, no ponds, no other tributaries of any of these rivers. It needs to be on the main parts of the river, because we don't want these hatchery salmon to get mixed in with the wild fish that are right now in the smaller streams. So when we get here, this is another spot. If this is a spot you choose to have your children or the students take a look around, check out the habitat, and see how this compares to a healthy habitat where they can survive and thrive. So again, we'll test the temperature here, and we'll also test the pH. And then we'll leave it up to the students to assess how the others parts are. Is there a place for them when we release the fish that they could find shelter under rocks or debris? And is there water movement so they're getting oxygen, or plant growth within the rivers? Okay, so first let's take a look at the temperature. Okay, so first let's take a look at the temperature. And I've had my thermometer here in the water for a bit, so let's take a look to see how the water temperature is here. Well, the water here is a little bit colder than it was in the Columbia River. It's about 44 degrees here, whereas the Columbia River is about 45, 46, and our tanks is about 48 to 52. So while the water is colder here, we'll have to keep that in mind as we're releasing our fish. Okay, so now let's test the pH here in the Willamette River. Again, I've got my test tube, my pH test solution, and the pH test card. So first I'm going to fill up the test tube with water again. And you can see I got it filled up right to the white dotted line. And now it's time to put in our test solution. I'll put in 3 drops. 1, 2, 3. And we'll put the top on and put the cap on, back on, and we'll go up and down a few times. And now we'll hold this up again to test the pH against our card. And already I can see the pH is a little bit better than it was in the Columbia. And you can see here, we'll kind of get close. It's actually about 7.2 or 7.3. So it's a little bit better than it was in the Columbia. The water temperature is a little bit colder. So again, as we release our fish into the river, if you choose to come here to Willamette, think about that the water is a little bit colder, so you might want to give the fish a little bit more time to acclimate. Okay, so now our salmon that we've been raising so carefully for the last several weeks have now gone out to the Columbia River, where they're going to begin the next chapter of their life.